In order to understand the United States' entry into World War II, we must talk about what led up to World War II beginning. In order to talk about this, we must talk about the aggressions by Italy, Nazi Germany, and Japan. Italian aggressions began with the League of Nations condemning attacks on smaller nations across the world, and by October of 1935, Italy began invading Ethiopia, which then led to the League of Nations creating sanctions against Italy, which included gun-making materials and rubber. Countries like France and Britain actually opposed these sanctions, arguing that it might persuade Mussolini to form an alliance with Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany. This would become true, as in October of 1936, Mussolini and Adolf Hitler would sign a treaty. This treaty would lead to a major alliance between Nazi Germany and Italy, and would lead to the Pact of Steel. In 1939, Italy actually invaded Albania, and soon afterwards Mussolini signed a full defensive alliance with Nazi Germany, known as the Pact of Steel. This bonded Nazi Germany and Italy and increased the aggressions across Europe and Africa between the two. The reason this pact was actually drafted was to oppose the League of Nations, which their purpose was stopping the rise of major powers, which was happening in Italy and Nazi Germany. The pact was actually taken heavily out of context by 1941, as Italy became completely dependent on Germany. Now we'll talk about the rise of Nazi Germany and their aggressions. The main purpose of the Nazi Germany aggressions was to rebuild the military and expand the Third Reich across Europe. Rebuilding the military actually broke the Treaty of Versailles, which at the time was formed after World War I. Hitler pushed his goal by becoming a world power by establishing a new racial order in Europe dominated by the German master race. The master race was actually a concept ideology in which Nordic and Aryan races predominant among Germans and other Northern European peoples and countries were deemed the highest in the racial hierarchy. Hitler bringing the master race back together would lead him to invading the countries of these people to bring them into one singular nation in Europe. To continue with Nazi German aggressions, by 1936, Nazi Germany began their invasion of the Rhineland to unite his master race. Germany would then siege Austria in 1938, then demanded and received the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia later that year. After seceding Lithuania in March of 1939, the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany signed a non-aggression pact with each other to ease tensions across Europe. Later, on September 1st, 1939, Germany would invade Poland, starting World War II. On September 17th, 1939, the Soviet Union would invade the east side of Poland, now no longer a sovereign nation. Next, we will talk about the Japanese aggressions. To understand Japanese aggressions, we must understand that Japanese aggressions stemmed from them wanting to become a world power. Part of this was the Meiji Restoration, which meant to grow like a European power. What Japan did is they took practices and cultures from the United States and Europe and began to implement them in their country. This including food, eating like these countries, growing industrialization and modernization like these countries as well. The three reasons why Japan wanted to do this was because they felt like other countries were growing stronger than them, and at the time they had always been under China's shadow. Growing nationalism within the country led to more aggressions, and eventually the major need for natural resources. With Japan being an island surrounded by bodies of water, they had a limited amount, which included oil, and as to why they started attacking other countries around them and increased their aggressions. After World War II had begun, Japan signed a treaty with Nazi Germany and allied with them in Italy, and began invading enemy countries around them at a more increased rate. They felt like they were justified, as since they were now allies with Germany. Thank you.